Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Streamline Capital. Really excited for today's show. We've got none other than Keith Heckman on the line with us today. So, Keith, what's up? How you doing?
Things are good, Brian. Just enjoying the cold weather in Michigan. How about for you?
Yeah. Well, I think you guys got a real cold snap going through right now. We're actually sitting in the 40s today in Idaho. So, that's not terrible for December.
No, that isn't bad. Yes, we're in the mid 20s and we did get a good amount of snow last week, but that's all right. It makes it nice for deer hunting.
Yeah, and around here, snow makes it nice for, skiing, snow. I mean, any one of those winter sports that, combine mountains and snow. So, yeah, the resorts closest to me are not open yet, so hoping for a couple of, snowstorms here coming up. But that said, let's talk a little bit about you today. And when I say a little bit, it's going to be mostly you talking, but tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into real estate.
So I'll skip into where I got into real estate. Back in about 2016, I decided to get my builder's license as well as my real estate license because I thought I would do some flips. My dad was a builder,
Mhm.
so I had that knowledge and expertise getting it from him. So I just decided why not buy my own places, fix them up, keep them as buy and holds, or just fix them up and flip them
Yep.
and just keep everything in house and kind of vertically integrate on a small scale. That started out okay. But I actually got busier just working for other investors and just regular everyday customers for remodels and found it difficult to
Mhm.
get into real estate. But in 2018, I finally pulled the trigger and bought my first single family home for a
Mhm.
long term buy and hold. That went well. Then I realized how I could use my retirement funds to actually leverage quicker and
Mhm.
buying more real estate or using other people's money. So then I started buying a few more duplexes and some single family homes. And then during that time, if I found a good deal for a flip, I would buy
Mhm.
that, fix it up, flip it, and then sell it. And then also learned about private money lending from some other mentors. So I
Mhm.
started using my retirement account to lend money to other real estate
Nice.
investors and become the
Nice.
bank. And I realized that was really nice too, to be able to spread out, not only have different streams of revenue between the buy and holds, the flips,
Yeah.
and then that long-term longevity of being the bank. That's gone really well. So that's what I did initially
Mhm.
and still have all but one of the original single family homes and duplexes. And I didn't buy a ton. I had four at the time and now I have
Mhm.
three because I decided to scale a little quicker going
Yeah.
into some larger real estate.
Yeah. So when you say that, you mean you sold one of the multifamilies to help you jumpstart the multifamily part? Did I say that right? You decided to
So
sell a single family to jumpstart the multifamily. Is that what I understand?
from the standpoint of getting into the GP world, yes. I
Okay.
actually used my retirement funds
Mhm.
to buy into some other deals as a limited partner first,
Okay. Got it.
because I realized that I wanted to scale faster. And the reason that happened
Hmm.
is about 5 years ago, my wife and I started a 5 year plan of how do we partially, if not fully, retire her within 5 years.
Hmm.
And so I started doing math after talking to other real estate investors and mentors, and it was either buy more single family doors
Hmm.
or jump into commercial real estate with multifamily. And I realized that there was way more work involved in those single family homes and all those extra roofs. And when a tenant moves out, you got a vacant property and that's it. There's nobody to soften the blow of
Yeah.
vacancies. And so I did some research on multifamily investing, and that would have been in 2021. Did some investigating, and then ultimately ended up buying Michael. I'll give him a little plug. Michael Block's book,
Yep.
the Little Yellow Book, like a lot of people have read, and
Hmm.
just really decided to dive in with his mentorship program. And I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it because it was helpful for multiple reasons. It gave
Hmm.
me access to other investors throughout the country. You may not, I don't know if you remember or not, but that's actually the first time I met you at his Dealmaker Live when I went there in 2022, I believe, or
Yep.
2023.
I think that's the
And
last one I attended. Yeah. So
because you
I,
were up on stage speaking.
yep. I was also a Michael Blanc coaching student, which, most coaching programs, when they have these conferences, they put their successful students on stage to help the people in the crowd, make a determination to, throw some more money towards the program. And, I was all about that, but I did well in that program. That program did well for me too. And I think it's an important part of everybody's journey is getting that coaching.
I felt having the mentor and that coaching was more beneficial to me not making mistakes
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
this space because I knew if I made a mistake in the single family sale or even a duplex or quad, I wasn't going to break the bank with my wife and I. But I knew if I made a mistake jumping into multifamily and getting a 96 unit building under contract, that was
Yeah.
not a good deal. Not only could it ruin us financially, more importantly, it would probably have stopped it even start because people that might have invested in that deal would have just been burned by it and maybe never invested again with me. So it could have, stopped my journey before it even started. So that was even
Yeah.
almost more important to me than the relationships I was able to get across the country with access to his program.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the reason why I did it myself was I didn't want to have a bad first deal. I kind of wanted to fast forward the success, instead of spending 2, 3 years of figuring it out, get a coach and kind of take that 2 to 3 year time frame and cut it down to maybe a year or so. But anyway, yeah, lots of good stuff to say about coaching in general. And Michael Blanc, he's somebody I've considered a mentor ever since. But anyway, so you got into the coaching program, you did a couple of passive investments. Let's talk about some of your GP spots. And I'm excited about this part. So for everybody else, Keith partnered with us on one of our deals that we recently closed on too. So anyway, let's talk about what you've done so far on the multifamily side.
Absolutely. Because of those relationships that I was able to create through that program, well, I met Kyle McCune at the DMLiker Live as well, but he and I stayed in touch. So my connection with him led me to connect with a couple of other operators
Mhm.
in Charlotte because he was on a deal as a KP. And just from connecting with them through that program and getting to know them and vetting them as operators and us getting to know each other when they
Mhm.
had a deal available, they had offered me an opportunity to help them raise capital as well as invest. So I was able to get on my first deal in
Okay.
2024 with them on an apartment deal in Charlotte, a 56 unit deal, and
Mhm.
helped raise capital for that and part of the GP team. So now, I'm able to learn, which is one of the most important things I wanted to do, is
Yeah.
not, like you said, shrink that gap of getting in a deal and the learning curve, just decrease it. So I've been able to stay in touch with them as being an asset manager on that deal and part of the active management once it closed. There's lots of
Mhm.
things I've learned that I would have potentially taken years to get to that point had I
Yeah.
not partnered up with people. So that was our first deal. And then we also, that same group ended up getting another deal under contract in North Carolina, and that one closed in 2025. So that was, I want to say, first September, October timeframe.
Mhm.
That was a 96 unit deal. So that one continue to help with raising capital, and that's been my main role, is
Yep.
raising capital as a partner for the GP team alongside investing some of my own money in those deals, and then being part of those weekly asset management calls just to start learning the behind the scene things, and then eventually be able to become more involved, whether it's through risk or someday be a KP, once I get to that point, and just then at some point in time being part of the asset management team day to
Yeah.
day. Those were the two with that group, which then led me to connecting with you for the
Mhm.
Westmont deal that closed and
Yeah.
helping to raise capital on that one as well as investing alongside. And so that one I'm excited to be part of those weekly calls that we have as the team, to
Mhm.
as we're stabilizing and getting those units turned and
Yeah.
everything to a stable asset that goes into value add properties.
Yeah, and it's eye-opening, when I started out, maybe it's not eye-opening for everyone else, but it was eye-opening for me when I bought my first value add property, how much work it actually took, I think up front I thought it was simple, hire a property manager, hire a general contractor and go, and then we could sit back and watch. But yeah, very eye-opening how much work is involved. Something else I'll say about, the way you decided to do things, raise capital for a couple deals first, get some experience, and then, potentially add to your skill set while you're doing that. I think that's probably the best way. If I could come up with a one size fits all for everybody, that would be it, to be honest with you. And so just curious, why did you decide to raise capital? There's lots of different ways you can get into multifamily. Why did you decide on the route that you went?
It's interesting because I remember sitting in that Dealmaker live and that, someone got on stage and talked about there's multiple things. You could either be the person who wants to network and raise money, You
Hmm.
could be the hands-on asset manager, or you could just be the person that's doing the construction. If you want to get in there as a part of the manager side of things. And I remember sitting with a group of guys that I got to meet there and got to know. I said, "Oh, I was like capital raising. No, I'm all day long going to underwrite deals. I'm going to be the guy that's going to be behind the
Hmm.
scenes." And that's what I started with. I started, reviewing all the deals, talking to brokers, and I enjoyed it, but what was challenging is around that time, I decided for many reasons that I was going to get back into medical sales. So I was going to leave working for myself as a remodeler, contractor, realtor, and go back into medical sales because I had about 17 years of experience
Yep.
in it prior to getting my builder's license. And there's just an opportunity that presented itself from a past buddy that I worked with. So I got back into it and I realized, wow, when you're in a W-2, you do spend a lot more time on the stuff that they require since they're, paying your bills, so to speak, or giving
Hmm.
you a paycheck. And I realized really quickly it was going to be very difficult to be so much hands-on with underwriting.
Yeah.
Talking to brokers, I just thought, I felt it was a better avenue for me because there was more things I could set up on autopilot with
Hmm.
capital raising to stay in
Yeah.
touch with people that would then allow me to have more of those one-on-one conversations as I started to develop relationships with possible investors. So it really came down to what was going to be the best avenue for me to get involved. And I realized it was capital raising, which is ironic because now I enjoy it, even though initially I said I really don't want to, because like a lot of people that are probably going to hear this, you feel like when you're capital raising, you're asking people for money and you are almost trying to convince them that they should get in this deal. And after I've been doing this for a little over a year, I realize when I talk to people now, it's different. It's actually, hey, I have a opportunity for you to invest in this. If you want to, great. If you don't, no big deal. I'll move on to the next ones. I feel like we have an opportunity for them to invest in a deal, and I'm not asking them for money, so it doesn't feel weird.
Yeah.
So my mind shift has changed.
Yeah, when I first started raising capital for my first deal, it was similar. I felt like I was asking people for money. Something that happened yesterday, I talking with two brothers on the phone that are, both investing in one of our opportunities. At the end of the call, they said, "Hey, Brian, I really appreciate this. Thanks for letting us in." And it was stuff like that very beginning when people thanked me for opportunities that I realized that I made that own mindset switch myself, and I realized I'm giving people something that they want. I don't have to convince people to do something that I want them to do. And then about, capital raising with a full-time job versus underwriting or even asset management. If you've got a 9 to 5, it's really hard to do the underwriting. That's when brokers are, working. It's really hard to do the asset management because that's when your property managers are working. But if you want to try to raise capital with a W-2, well, guess what? You're off when everyone else is off. So there's lots of good reasons to raise capital up front. And it gets you into a lot of deals that you wouldn't be able to do by yourself. So everybody's really, really happy to let the guy that can raise two, three, 400,000, up to $1 million into the deals. So yeah.
And the thing that I know you know this,
Yep.
and probably a lot of the people that are going to listen know this. I want it to be clear. I didn't choose this route because I'm saying, oh, it's easy.
Hmm.
It's not. And I'm really saying that because I replay what I said in my head. But yeah, I don't want people thinking that I took that route because I thought it was going to be easy. It just
Yeah.
was, like you said, fit my needs better. And then
Mhm.
the other thing that people may not know if they're new to this is, you can't just come in, raise money, and then walk away. You have to actively stay on that deal to stay compliant. And I want to anyway, for
Yeah.
all the reasons you said, to continue to learn. And that is one of the reasons that I'm partnering up with people such as yourself that's been successful, the group out of Charlotte. If I'm new and I'm partnered up with some people with experience and success for turns and full cycle deals, that gives the credibility to the investors I talk to say, yes, I'm newer, but here's who I'm partnering with. So look at them and look at their track record.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I've started to do, I mean, you're a great example. I wanted to stay focused on the group in North Carolina as a operator because I got to
Hmm.
know them and trust them. Now through them and through knowing you over the last few years, I know and trust you. And so now I'm moving into, because you're in a whole different market. You're an operator I trust, and now I can partner with you on deals. And I'd love to
Yeah.
find, a couple more across the US and
Yeah.
pockets where are good investments because they're boots on the ground. And then that gives me the comfort knowing any of those investors that trust me, I'm trusting the people I partner with. Trust is, you're only so good as our last deal, and we've got to be able to protect people's capital. I know it's not perfect what we do, but if we partner with
Yeah.
the right people, we're going to have a better chance of protecting that capital and putting it to work.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. Couldn't have said it better. Yeah. And then, like I said, my one size fits all was raising capital first, but just reiterating what you just said is, if you're raising capital, you don't have to be where the deals are. You have to have trusted operators that are operating, but you've got a lot more flexibility to invest in multiple areas. I raise capital, but my main role is putting the deals together and operating them, which I'd recommend that if that's what you're doing, you draw a 2 or 3 hour circle around where you live, and that puts some limits on there as far as where you can invest, because you have to be on the ground, you have to be able to get to the properties frequently, you have to be able to sit kneecap to kneecap with the brokers and a lot of time your investors as well. But good stuff there. So how about this, what were some of the challenges you had starting out capital raising, and how have you progressed since that first capital raise?
Fantastic question, because one of the biggest challenges I think we're all going to face is when you get started. I mean, you really only have your circle of family and friends, most likely, that you can go call upon. So there was limited opportunities. And so the challenge I first felt was anyone that expressed interest through conversation of, yeah, when you have a deal, give me a call. When a deal came up, I would send it to them, and they would say to me, oh, this doesn't fit my criteria.
Mhm.
And because I had limited investors, I was more focused on trying to fit that square
Yeah.
into a round hole, or whatever, square
Yeah.
peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
I was just so focused, like a dog with a bone, trying to change that investor's mind. And that was one of the biggest things for me to realize. Like I said a few minutes ago, hey, Brian, it's Keith. I got a deal in North Carolina. Here's what the parameters are. What are your first thoughts? Oh, hey,
Yeah.
Keith, it's not a great time right now. I just deployed $100,000 and I'm tapped. Okay, no problem. I'll call you next time I have a deal.
Mhm.
That's what I've gotten to now, is being able to just say, no big deal. I'll hit you next time. This one doesn't work for
Yeah.
you. And it's a good feeling when you grow that investor base. So that was the biggest challenge, is getting over trying to convince someone this was a deal that was right for them. Second biggest challenge, it kind of goes hand in hand, is just not having a huge investor pool, because
Yep.
once you hit the family and friends, you can tap out your resources. And then someone comes to you and said, well, I mean, this happened with you. You had reached out to me and asked about raising for the deal, and I'm like, I don't think I can do it right now because of the deal we just got done. And
Yeah.
then it worked out. I actually could help you out when you needed some help with a different deal, because I think that was maybe a different deal you reached out. But
Mhm.
having more people now is nice
Yeah.
to open up opportunities. I mean, for me, another big thing was just getting out of my own way and overthinking things, because I don't care what you do for a living. We are building relationships with people. If we build relationships, get to know them, then know, like, and trust. I know everybody and their brother says that, but it is the reality. If I get to know you, you get to know me. That doesn't happen over time, but it's got to consistently happen where there's touches.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Over time, you learn things that work better. You learn how to preserve those relationships. A lot of what you said, took me back to my first couple of capital raises. Why, it's same thing. It's like, no, no, this is a really good deal for you, right? Trust me, this is a good deal for you, like a used car salesman. But when you focus on the relationship, and that's something we stress, is relationship comes first, deal comes second, and so we want to make sure that we walk away from every phone call with an investor with a better relationship. Sometimes that means telling them, hey, this isn't the right deal for you. It's a strategy that'll work a lot better long term. Sometimes you have to do a little bit more work in the short term, but we're in it for the long term. That's why we do real estate.
Absolutely.
All right. So a couple questions to finish things up. Question number one, what's next for you?
Big thing is we're finishing up capital raising for the Westmont deal. We're close, so that's priority number one, is to get
Mhm.
that fully funded. And then the other one, just got another deal under contract yesterday.
Nice.
The ink was signed in the north. Well, it's just outside of North Carolina, and it's just outside of Charlotte, MSA, and Shelby. So that
Mhm.
one's going to be coming live here in the next few weeks. That we'll get some webinars put together and start presenting that to investors. And that's right now, that's another one I'll be putting some of my own money in, which is what I like too about all the GPs I
Yeah.
partner with, is we put our own money in there. So people need to understand that, because not every GP team will put money in a deal. So I look to partner with people that are going to put their own money in, myself included, because that means they believe in that deal just as much as they're trying to sell an LP. That's what's next. And then just continuing to grow, just to continue to grow my investor pool by reaching out and connecting with more people and just developing relationships.
Awesome. So more of the same, just at a higher level.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, next question. If you had to give advice to somebody who's just starting out, what would that advice be?
Definitely education, but I would say don't do the analysis paralysis. I mean, education,
Hmm.
find a mentor, and then take some action because you will make mistakes. If you're good, you're going to learn from those mistakes and not make the same ones. I can't stress it enough. Even when I started in single family, I still had mentors that I still lean
Hmm.
on to this day, and it's made that learning curve shrink and it made me feel comfortable
Yeah.
to not make mistakes that they already made. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to put yourself out there because I have learned this is an industry that plenty of people want to help you succeed. And in this space that we're talking about, multifamily, most people will fail if they try to do it all themselves. Ask for help.
Yes. 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 Ask for help, partner, look for people where there's a value proposition there. I think that's wise. All right. Last question. How can listeners learn more about you?
So my website is ktahproperties.com. You can learn about what I've got going on there. You can book a call if you want to have a conversation. Then my email is ktahpropertiesllc@gmail.com.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll make sure that information's in the show notes for anybody interested. That said, Keith, thanks for coming on the show today. You provided a ton of value.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Brian. Thanks for asking me.